Welcome to the Trending Tokens podcast with Jake Bale and Jeff Pulver. Jake is a marketing consultant for T0 and consults in the security token space. Jeff is an internet pioneer known for his work in BOIP and has invested more than 400 blockchain startups and shares his knowledge through a program called the Pulver Edge. All opinions on trending tokens are the opinions of Jake, Jeff, and the guests. Nothing should be taken as legal or trading advice. The content of this podcast is for informational and educational purposes only. On episode 2, we discuss Facebook's Libra coin, Binance restricting U.S. investors, security token capital raise models, and some thoughts on where security tokens are headed in general and how soon they're headed there. So, what was the conference that you're at in Trinidad?
Well, it was called HIT, but it was an attempt to bring technology and innovation together in a very meaningful way. And so it was the Tech Hub Island Summit. This is Trinidad and Tobago, and they're doing everything they can to bring and be tech in a world which is a little resistant to change.
Was it a lot of blockchain or sort of?
Well, there was just I just was listening to a payment session that had a participant, someone who's called out to be the largest whale in Trinidad. So I wanted to listen to the talk, and it was interesting. It was on payments, dealing with both digital payments and crypto, and again, we're dealing with a market that's I don't know. I think Bitcoin blockchain in 2018 got about $1 trillion worth of earned media. So it's good to see wherever you go in the world, people talking about this stuff, even if they don't have in-depth knowledge of what it means. And even if the folks who are speaking about it have in-depth knowledge of what it means, that definitely does not have equal understanding in the audience. So I was watching and listening to the speakers and trying to get the impression from the audience how much was being understood and processed. And for some things, it was quite impressive, and others, it's like a comedian who no one laughs at their jokes, and so it's a big gap in education opportunity still exists.
I think we'll see a lot of that next week with Facebook, people laughing.
Well, look, there's some people who think that Facebook effectively is being subsidized to take down Bitcoin because they've lumped in a whole bunch of commercial players to create yet another coin, which I mean, it's Facebook's many things, and certainly, they try things out. I happen to know the person who runs their team. I'm not friends with him. I tried to get him to speak at one of my conferences 3 times because he's the product manager for Messenger, and he left I think he left PayPal to go there. So no surprise whatsoever that he's the one leading the charge for blockchain at Facebook. It's just how they execute it and how commercial they offer it, and what are the on-ramps, off-ramps? And, if Facebook is now saying that they're not responsible for disinformation that's distributed through Facebook, like fake news, because they're not a news organization, I truly believe that if they're going to be dealing with crypto, and depending upon how they do it, they will need money transfer licenses. They're going to need everything possible to transfer and transmit information and money. And of course, they're global, which, ironically, it might be their launch of crypto that leads to the dissolving of Facebook for antitrust. Because not only do people not trust Facebook, Facebook might actually be cited for Sherman Act violations.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of a combination of the why blockchain question when you're looking at Facebook payments.
Yeah, why blockchain? I mean, who's ever been defrauded on Facebook? I mean, there's a lot of why blockchain questions. Many. And I think that there's, one part world domination, another part delusion. And what's the reality? The reality is that maybe, in fact, Facebook is super successful yet again, and they're going to bring a world together for another way to transfer wealth. But the person whose wealth they're going to be transferring value to is more or less Mark's family.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about it, they've said that they're going to do a basket of currencies. So not just pegged to the dollar, but some kind of a combination. And I'd imagine that they're going to try and be as global as possible. So include as many currencies as possible. And it just seems like a strange thing to peg against.
I really think it's call it a distraction. I think that we're being fed. It's sort of like the next Avengers movie coming out. Sometimes Marvel likes to distract people before hitting them smack in the face with what's really going on. So, not if things are not making sense, perhaps they're not making sense on purpose. If they're truly not making sense, I would reevaluate why we even care. But we care because Facebook has not so silently, not so invisibly become a mammoth organization that connects over 2 billion people. Not many companies in the world can claim 2 billion customers, paid or unpaid. And there comes a lot of social responsibility for that. What Facebook has so far shown is that they like to experiment with other people's lives by letting people do bad AI on their platform, by socializing their and breaking their privacy, and allowing scandals like Cambridge Analytica to proliferate just creates lack of trust, lack of love.
Facebook is also known for having absolutely no customer service, as because I run a lot of advertising on Facebook, and you can never get someone on the phone to help you. I can't imagine them being anywhere near what you'd get from a bank or, Western Union or any of that kind of thing if they're so bad at customer service.
I think that they have not really thought through what it means to truly be in service, since you can't run away from customers in banking. We do KYC when people of a certain age got their first bank account. They were introduced to the bank via a bank manager who verified their identity and brought them on board. And the lack of customer service, I mean, customer service via bots just goes so far. And when people are dealing with things like money, people actually want to be served. And because if things don't work out perfectly, there are going to be problems. And again, I think from a regulatory perspective, Facebook has lots and lots and lots of exposure in countries which they don't know about how they're being used. And of course, they're just going to say that we didn't mean to be like that. And I don't think that ignorance will actually succeed. And if people end up using Facebook to create arbitrage and to do things which might be covered under any kind of banking legislation, again, Facebook is definitely enabling some of this. And so they should be held accountable for what they do.
And also, we have Binance made some announcements in their updates of terms of service. I'm not sure if you saw this yet, but
I saw that they're basically blocking the United States, but I think they may very well be launching their own U.S. based service instead.
it seems like it would be hard since they haven't followed rules historically for them to come in and be approved for anything, in my opinion.
Well, if in fact they're just shutting off the U.S., okay, that's not so good for them ultimately, since I think the U.S. represents a large number of people who would like to have accounts with them. But I think it was Bitfinex, somebody recently cut off U.S. from one of their versions, one of their divisions, and then enabled it for a U.S. only division. And so I haven't spoken or read any tweets from Binance other than to think that maybe they're switching because they're going to go with a dedicated regulated environment. If they're simply just cutting off U.S. Citizens, yeah, it happens. And they won't be the only ones. I think that if companies, and that is one of the bad things of reality, is that if the United States doesn't get their act together in the relatively short term, they're going to be driving what used to be the financial capital of the world out of the United States and into many other countries where people feel more comfortable and where the rules are actually proactive. Places like Bermuda, places like Mauritius, which may have reputations from one sector or the other sector, all of a sudden become the go-to places because it's clear what the regulatory authorities want and being proactive with legislation. And I think that it's a matter of time. So if we'll see what happens next week and see what comes out of all this. But in fact, if this is the end of American use of Binance, Chinese VPNs, anyone?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's going to become very familiar with using VPNs.
Yes, I think VPN people who lived abroad who wanted to be able to get to certain locations or watch television, from licensed content sources, understand VPNs. Those who are new to VPNs, they're not hard to find, and then it's just always playing a game whether or not the IP address that you're using is in a blacklist or not. But it's a game of cat and mouse, and sometimes you're caught, and other times you win.
I've seen some interesting responses from the people in the crypto groups talking about trying to move their coins right now, and they can't find other exchanges that are open to the US that also have these coins listed.
So they basically have to put their stuff into cold storage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and these people don't, right now, if they have it on the exchange, you'd imagine they don't know very much about cold storage or how that would work. So it's sort of this strange, I don't know, people are going to learn some lessons, I think.
And people may actually notice that their investments may go to zero. It can happen. All of a sudden, something that was trading quite well, all of a sudden, no takers, no buyers, can't sell it, and you're stuck. And so it's one of the bigger challenges, I think, overall with the crypto markets is lack of education and the greed that's inherent in every part of the ecosystem. And when things are conspiring against you, or at least it seems to be, maybe they really are. And it's a true challenge, which time will only tell whether or not the analogies we use will change. I'm personally not a fan of digital wallets. I don't know why they're called wallets. I think that it's not very easy for someone new to the game to get onboarded and set up with an account where they truly understand what they're doing. They could follow someone else's instructions and then try teaching that person to create a my ether wallet and go into cold storage. It's like you get deer in the headlight eyes, and it's not so simple. And so people worry about or wonder, why is it that if these terms are so often used in the media, why there are not so many more people using it? It's because the cost of gaining access to this world is so steep, and you both have a lack of knowledge and just lack of ease of use. And if it was any other industry, people would be hypercritical about the user interfaces and user experiences. But here, people just distract the conversation and promote yet a different wallet as an interface, thinking that's what the problem is.
Yeah, it's interesting to see a lot of the wallets have started to bring credit cards back, letting people do their weekly buys with a credit card.
I think that we will probably see more and more of that, particularly until maybe we will usher in an era of crypto-friendly banks which are willing to actually play at the bridge of money transmitter. I mean, it's going to be kind of curious to see how Facebook actually deals with this. And if Facebook was just playing with the equivalent of Facebook reward points, where that you were earning credits based on how many posts you make, how often you like somebody or interact with the media or contribute to it or comment, that'd be one set of reward system. But if they're actually going to use this simply as payment methods for Facebook auctions, or
It seems to me like it's going to be micropayments, people, person to person payments, or, if you're buying, you have a friend that makes coffee online or something like that, you want to buy their coffee, or, sort of direct buys between people. And it just doesn't seem like it needs to be blockchain, or that it needs this conglomerate of banks like Visa and MasterCard and Western Union all on board. I'm interested to see the white paper when it comes out next week.
I think that there's going to be something shared, and many people confused with blank stares. What is going on, and why? And again, Facebook is sort of, if you look at the various operating companies of Facebook, they're almost like their own country, and this happens to be their banking division.
Yeah, and they've had, I don't know if you saw this week, Instagram has been down a few times for long periods of time, which hasn't happened, I guess, in a couple years. So Facebook is having their own problems outside of fake news.
Wow.
People advertising cryptocurrency on their platform.
Well, that is a concern, but it is also maybe a sign that maybe we need to start finding replacements to Facebook so that we can actually gain a little bit of our privacy back and not worry that all our personal information is being sold to the highest bidder, literally.
It's so hard because you can't just, I mean, there's already options for other social networks out there like Gab. You go there and it doesn't have the people that you're used to interacting with. And so it's not really the same thing. It's not quite a social network yet.
Right. The tribes, the personal tribes have not arrived in mass. Because there was a time, maybe it was 10 years ago, that one social network, then the next and the next, but you and your gang moved over there, and all of a sudden your friends were there, and then it's like, okay, we'll hang out.
Yeah, MySpace was the biggest example of that for me. I remember, because it was sort of the first social network that I was on. All of a sudden, I noticed that MySpace was just full of people changing the background on their walls and a bunch of strange like HTML code being put in posts. And then I found out that Facebook was open to people who didn't have a college email account. And I'd moved over there and have been in Facebook since then. I don't know if I wouldn't be there without the advertising side of it, I don't think.
I think, yeah, I have one of the earlier Facebook non-edu accounts, and I definitely moved. And my for all I know, my MySpace account still exists. I haven't not been on it in many years.
Oh, I tried to shut my MySpace account down a few times. They don't really let you actually shut it down. It's always there.
Wow.
Hopefully, I didn't say anything stupid when I was in my early 20s.
If not, you don't hold yourself accountable. It's okay. You just recant it, because what did we know?
It's funny that you mentioned retro. I had a retro STO offer come across my desk this morning for a movie about the company Atari.
Oh, I know the Atari. I know the people who put that together. I actually I spent some time with the original team.
There's a lot. I've seen a lot more sort of action in the STO space. Even in the last week, I'd say.
But we're not seeing, though, is the liquidity, and I think that when we look at the STO space, it's like, on one hand, I'm incredibly bullish about the future, because I think the future of digital securities includes digital securities, and when you're digitizing securities, you're probably creating security tokens. Or
Yeah, I think the more of these offers that we see coming in that bring in different groups of people, I think that we'll start to see these exchanges build up the number of users, build up the retail presence of users, and I think the liquidity is probably a year to 2 years away.
Yeah, so if it's 2019 right now, we're really talking 2021, 2022, which is, I'm thinking baseline 2021 is when we start to see some sort of critical mass, at least for liquidity purposes. And so that means that if that's really the key, then the inflection point is 2021, 2022. So it's going to be over 5 years that we start to see this market build. It won't be an overnight thing, but it is exciting. And unfortunately, there are a lot of deals that I've seen that are really deals I would never, ever, ever touch. Not that I'm an investment advisor, but it's like, wow. And then there's some fun people who are doing crazy great things and taking chances, and going out there by being a leader, by being one of the very first security tokens with a major brand behind them. But the real test of the market is the next time there's a unicorn IPO, did they decide not to go the IPO route? Instead, they went the STO route.
Yeah, the first time that happens, that'll change everything.
Right. So that's going to be like our moment in time when that actually happens in real life. Then boom, we win. So it's interesting. It's now June. I was it seems that winter time may be over. At least there's been some stabilization in the price of BTC. Ethereum is creeping up there a bit and stabilizing a little bit. What do you think today? So today's June 14th. Do you think going into July?
Oh man, I hate trying to make price predictions on Bitcoin because I feel like I'm always wrong.
Well, I'm never right about this. Every time I ever looked at the numbers and said, "Damn it, I'm missing out," it falls, or it's like, no, it went up. It's like, oh wow, that's like I have no idea. It seemed that the sentiment has shifted. That I was getting used to the 3,000s, then I was getting used to the 4,000s, and then I was getting used to the 3,000s again. Then it's like I blink my eyes, and now you're at 7 or 8,000. I just don't know where that norm is. Are we normalizing around one number, another number, or are we going to see a shift and maybe like the equivalent of an inverse yield curve? Is there going to be a different currency that comes into vogue that we're not even thinking about?
I mean, in the last 24 hours, BNB is down, I think 13%, all on that news of cutting off the U.S. market, and that's not even happening until September. So I would be concerned that some of the things, some of these big moves of players leaving the space will affect the price of Bitcoin in a negative way. But hopefully, there's T0 has their crypto app coming up later this month, and I think that there's going to be a lot more focus on bringing crypto to the masses, which has been hard. I mean, no exchanges right now in the United States are trying to bring crypto to the masses.
Right. Also, I guess in August or some period of time around then, I believe the T0 offering should be available to the non-accredited investors.
Some of the securitized tokens have actually already passed their year. So assuming that they achieve listing, which is something that's been announced, T0 will be implementing the securitized protocol, the DS protocol. Those tokens could potentially be available to retail investors as soon as they're listed. So we're kind of on the right on the edge here, right on the pulver edge.
And this is where this is where the big leap of faith is, though, and that's that these are deals worth doing. So, back in the dot-com era, I forget whether it was the first 40, the first 25, but the first large number of deals that came through in 95, 96 particularly, they all popped. They popped big because these are deals that people wanted to get involved in, and those FOMO, fear of missing out, starts to arise. And all of a sudden, the dot-com era becomes the dot-com era, and almost every company that went public blossomed tremendously, leaving lots of money on the table. So people were able to then, across the entire ecosystem, benefit from it. In this STO marketplace, I'm not aware of how many people are being that generous, allowing every intermediary to benefit from a listing, from going public, from this, from that. And so what happens is that if these listings from Securitize don't pop and offer investors great returns, I promise you that the current investors will turn their backs on STOs and gamble on IEOs and gamble other places, because part of my conclusion is that there are a lot of gamblers in this space, people that might be normally found in Las Vegas or Atlantic City. They're betting big on some of these deals because this is what they do. They like the high risk, high reward. What's boring to them is that when it's like a decent return, which we have most investor groups would say, "Oh my God, you're offering me 37% of my money. Where can I put my money?" Like, wow. And there are people that we both know that say, "Gee, if I'm not getting 10 for 1 for my money, this is bad."
Yeah, I've seen that a lot.
And so what we have is this disconnect between investments and investors, and managing expectations, and where do we find the middle if there is a middle. And so what I'm really, really worried about is whether or not the deals that were in 2017 and 2018 that got done by Securitize, if Polymath did any, I know Securitize was quite good with them. I think Harbor did a few. If any of those deals were truly amazing, rock solid deals that have metrics that attract people from outside the space to come into them, great. If these are the deals which I'm aware of, which were not that exciting, it was more exciting they were happening rather than what they were doing, just that they were doing it. But I think the novelty of that has worn off quickly, and the half-life of that's very short. So what happens if those deals don't pop and there's not a lot of volume and not a lot of liquidity? It could put the entire marketplace back a few years. And so, but last year no one was thinking about being selective at what deals to do. People just took whatever deal they could come up with, which was willing to pay the fees. People did the deals.
I'd almost be worried to see STOs come in and pop 10x on an exchange, because you know that the people that are buying, I mean, if it goes up too much, you're eventually going to have that downturn. There's not unlimited volume of buyers, not unlimited buying volume.
Well, look, talk about downturn. The last we checked on the accredited investor to accredited investor trading on our friends on T0, I don't believe they're trading at 10.
No, we're not quite back up there yet.
So we, the hope that I have is that when the unaccredited community comes in, appreciates the genius of what was invested ahead of them, that maybe the market will then go up.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think that you're definitely right. I haven't looked too much into the securitized tokens that are in existence, but there was nothing that was just groundbreaking. Sort of, I always felt like T0 was that to me. The idea of compliant exchange.
So to me, T0 is that groundbreaking token that took the big chance. That is a high-profile company that represents lots of vision, amazing resources, and unfathomed a number of hours put in to make that stuff happen. I mean, I'm familiar with one of the securitized deals because my friends, if it was ended up being called 22x, I believe it was investments in a percentage of all of the 500 startups. I think their 22nd fund. They securitized their interest in that fund, and I found that fascinating. I don't know how any of those companies are doing today. If any of them are unicorns, if so, yeah, that securitized could be interesting to at least get a better understanding. But it's like, what investment advisors do I know that are actually looking at these deals? The answer to me is zero. And if you don't have investor relations actively going out and explaining what's going on, if you don't have absolute proactive accounting and information being shared, then you're in the dark. And if it's for the benefit of the industry, for people to be engaged in where these things are going, I'll take a positive outlook. I'm not trying to be negative on anybody. I just want to see great deals, great metrics. I want to see great returns. I want to see the possibility for growth, so that if Main Street is coming along and making an investment, there's no greater risk than other risky investments for them to come forward and benefit from. So it's a sure thing is not a good thing, and we want people to to play fairly. It's just be aware, because another conversation I had recently, are STOs really the replacement of pink sheets? And I think so. I kind of think that the pink sheets are dead, and that what will replace pink sheets are STOs, and the really good STOs will end up on NASDAQ.
It'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. I've seen a couple of pink sheets. Start Engine has one. MedX, I believe, is the company that's they were a pink sheet company 3 or 4 years ago, and now they're raising money via Start Engine.
Now, does Start Engine, are they limited to crowd CF offerings for domestic U.S. corporations?
No, they're doing 503Cs. They're doing you can do a Reg D, Reg S on Start Engine, and then I guess Reg A and A Plus are the ones that they're sort of focused on. They were really big into the Reg A Plus.
Do you know how much time it takes to get a Reg A deal?
Oh yeah, I mean, Start Engine was one of the first companies to get their own Reg A Plus approved, and those guys have been sitting around for months talking about Reg A Plus is going to be the next big thing, and none of the deals were approved. They're all just sitting there on someone's desk. So there's
wow.
Yeah, I think there's only been 2, I think, Reg A Plus deals that have been approved. I think
Reg A Plus in general, or tokenized Reg A.
Tokenized Reg A.
So, is there any reason why we couldn't just do a Reg A deal and then tokenize it after the money is raised?
They're thinking that they're going to. I don't know why they're doing A plus. I think that they're thinking they need more money than what Reg A would allow. I don't know about the tokenization after the fact. I know that some of the deals that are on Start Engine currently, that are CF deals, they're tokenizing a percentage of the company and just using that as an initial raise. So maybe 15% of the company is up for a tokenized raise on a crowdfunding deal. And then what they do past that, I'm not sure.
And as far as if you and I were doing a startup today, how many months would it take for us to actually be able to do a Reg A crowdfunding?
If we're trying to raise $1 million, it could be done in 2 months with marketing. I don't know. It's going to sort of depend on the type of deal and how interested people are. But I've seen deals that have been running for maybe 4 to 5 months at a very low volume, and then they've been ramped up in the last week or 2. Wow. So they're bringing in another $30,000, $40,000 a day, and these are deals that are on the Start Engine platform currently.
That sounds super exciting. So that's something which, I do think that as we look through phases of funding and how startups can raise capital, we've always heard about angel networks. We've heard about talking to venture capitalists. Having a viable funding option through companies like Start Engine sound like a way to go for some entrepreneurs.
Getting that first $1 million and demonstrating that you can do business with the first $1 million, I think, is quintessential. Like we need to have that happen on every deal. You can't just have a white paper and an idea anymore. And I don't want to hear about anybody raising $200 million that doesn't have an office yet.
No, right. No, I actually, in my mind anyway, I have a couple of startups that I would like to get funded. Frankly, I would like to consider doing a fundraise for the Pulver Edge. I really like the vision, although it's my vision, but I do like what I'm trying to do, and I do need to raise some capital to have the infrastructure needed, and then the marketing money needed to help promote what I'm doing. So it's
yeah. I mean, with the gap that's created in education, especially in business, there's always a need for something like what you're offering. I saw a video on Facebook the other day of a high school football coach teaching his team how to change tires on their car.
Really?
Because the entire team didn't know how to change tires. So this guy's after hours teaching them how to change tires, something that everybody at some point is going to need to know how to do. And it's not being taught in school.
That's a little sad.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow. Well, interesting time. So this is our third podcast. I think it's a podcast anyway. At least it's a conversation.
Yeah, definitely a conversation, and we'll be looking forward next week when that white paper comes out. I want to talk about that again after we got a chance to see what exactly Facebook thinks they're doing.
Do you want to try to? I mean, we can ask. Do you want to try to get Facebook PR to come on board and we can interview them?
I haven't had good luck contacting people at Facebook. If I do, I'm going to ask them to give me my. I have a comedy page that had 3.6 million fans that they took away from me.
What?
I'd like to get that.
Really?
I'd like to get that back first. Yeah.
Oh my goodness! I'm so sorry. Wow. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No customer support.
Years and years and years ago, I was friendly with some of the founders of Facebook and some of the early team, but they seem not to know me anymore. So I cannot offer to help out on that. But wow, but it's interesting. I enjoy the conversations. I believe I get tweets from some people, and I meet a person occasionally and says, "I heard the podcast, really liked it. Wow, thank you." And I was like, "You're welcome." And it's so it'd be nice to know if people are listening to us. If you want to reach out, if you're listening to this on any of the streaming media platforms that are out there, my email that you could actually find me on is jeff.pulver@gmail.com, and Jake, you are
JakeVale@gmail.com.
I just put the dot in because I just like to see it, but it's and if you're interested in security tokens, the state of we'll call it the digital assets revolution. If you'd like to be a possible speaker or want to recommend a a guest, I guess they're called guests, a future guest, don't be shy. If you're in PR, we're not really here for you to flog your STO or your deal. You're at great risk if you actually try to have someone pitch us your deal while we're live recording, because we're kind of no holds barred, and we'll be straight in the face. But if you like to talk about where things are at, share your passion, talk about why you're involved in finance or whatever it may be, we're happy to be a friendly host and co-host.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Jeff. It was a pleasure again.
Yeah, I didn't realize that 40 minutes went by so fast.